Shalom, shalom. Before I begin this lesson, I want to give all praise, honor, and the glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Brakakadash. Double honors to the apostles, bishop, and elders, a great millstone that rule well, and peace and blessings be multiplied on all you brethren out there teaching his word in all sincerity and in truth. Shalom to the elect, 144,000, and the rest of the elect out there. Shalom. I'm the brother Dhamma Kibar, here with another lesson, Lord willing to edify through the spirit and power of Yahweh by Yahweh Shai. All right, and I was watching this video from Jimmy Dore, basically titled CNBC warns about upcoming civil war against the oligarchs. And you see, and this is a very hot topic because prophetically we know that, Egyptian versus the Egyptian civil war is definitely on the table, and it's definitely going to happen here. But, with the guy in the video, I forget his name. When I play it, you'll see his name. But he's basically, saying the same things that we've been saying, that, this whole civil war is biblically set to happen. But he's going into how, the average person doesn't really realize how, it's really the ones at the top that are orchestrating and really pushing, the buttons, using different psychological operations and working on the minds of the people to have a civil war, but the civil war against one another. See, this is why Isaiah says it's going to be Egyptian versus Egyptian. You see, because a lot of the talking points that are going to lead to, these people being divided, whether it's the Republicans or the Democrats, right versus left, the have versus the have nots, straight versus gay, this war against man versus woman. Basically all these things that people are divided about are all being used by these elites to further divide this society. When at the end of the day, all of the energy and the hatred and the protests and the anger should be at these trillionaires, at the kings of the earth, at these billionaires and these trillionaires. But they're able to use the right and the left, like we always read in Revelations 13 and 11, how it had two horns like a lamb, but it spake as a dragon. How they use this political, system to further divide, the citizens, which is all what this guy is referring to as fifth generational warfare. And this is why we tell you Israelites out there, you don't have no business being identifying as a Democrat, as a Republican, because at the end of the day, they're two cheeks on the same ass. They're all created to make it seem as if one is against the other, but really, they're working hand in hand. And a lot of the division in this country is being used by, this whole political system to separate you dumbass American people, to fight and to kill and to be at each other's throat, when your energy should surely be at the, at these top one percenters. They're the one robbing you. They're the one bending you over with no Vaseline. They're the ones that's putting the squeeze on you. They're the ones that's, have you in out here crashing out, have you out here living paycheck to paycheck. It's their systems and what their government that's basically sticking it to you. But through this whole, right versus left, far right versus left, Republican versus Democrat, your so-called political, side choosing, is ultimately is the thing that's causing you people to be wrecked and to be destroyed. But your energy is not being put in the right direction, man. And it's crazy. But I'm going to play some of this video. Got some precepts on deck so you can, Lord willing, be edified. But let's check this out.
BC talk about a different kind of civil war. It's not left-right, which it isn't.
You see, it's not left-right, but that's what the people perceive it to be, because they're using the left versus the right as a psychological operation, as the way to, further divide you people out here, man. And you can see it every day with with all these damn maggers, man. How you got, the maggers going up against the Democrats. Oh, they're far left. They're this, they're that, But they just use this political system as a way to deceive you dumbass people, man. And they're going to continue to give you the things to be angry about, the things to be mad about. You see Trump, when he's up there talking, all the maggers chew and eat every word that he says as if it's the truth, when he's literally a pawn of the very system. He's a pawn of these very elites that's fucking you over at the end of the day. But you got these stupid minded people who follow Trump and their maggers, to chew on every word that he speaks, and they're on his side and they're against the left. And it's further just, dividing you dumbass people right where these elites want you to be. They want you fighting against one another. They want you at each other's throat. They want you to destroy one another. Meanwhile, they're sitting back, getting richer and richer, going into their bunkers, pulling the strings of society, man. Now you got some people who are waking up and seeing that, the real problem, are these, the super elite, the rich, man, the 1%ers, so to speak. But like I said, for the most part, the average person, they don't see it that way. They're going to eventually crash out, and it's going to eventually lead to prophecy being fulfilled. But let's listen to some more.
Right, and you talk about this in your book extensively. So go ahead, take it where you would like.
Okay, I think there are 3 levels of warfare that we're talking about here. The first and overarching one that is already happening is the 5th generation war on everyone. So for people who don't know, military theorists have been talking about 4 generations of war for a long time. There was the old kind where armies would line up on battlefields and shoot at each other. That developed, and then we started to get the guerrilla warfare and things that we saw in Vietnam. Then 4th generation warfare. Now there's something called 5th generation warfare, which is essentially the governments of nations warring against their own citizens economically with biohazards and biosecurity threats and with information warfare, everything that you can think of. Basically,
see, and this is where we're at now. And this is what these elites are using on your people. Now, of course, they're going to eventually physically come down with wrath, like it tells you in Revelations 12:12. But as of right now, they're using this whole 5th generational warfare, information, disinformation, propaganda. Now they got deep fakes. They got AI. They got, all these different things in place to, mentally fuck with the people, Like right now, they November 1st, they cut the food stamps, That's more of a squeeze. That's more of this form of 5th generational warfare, to where the government and the powers that be and these politicians, they're waging war on you people, but it's not so, blatantly obvious. It's being done, very craftily, very, subtly, very, secretly. If you're not paying attention, you won't catch on to it. But, we see it, as clear as day. You see, like I said earlier, this is how, they're able to tell you people what to be mad about. Like Trump will get up there and start talking and spewing this bullshit. All of the MAGAs and all of his supporters, they'll eat all that shit up and just run with it and believe it and take it as truth. And they'll take that same sentiments that Trump's saying and they'll use it to fight against the left or to fight against those that don't identify as MAGAs or as Republicans. And it just causes more confusion and more division and more, more to help these elites' goals at the end of the day.
The oligarchs who really run the country, not the politicians, trying to control the masses in various ways. But when the population starts to wake up to realize, oh, hey, there's this warfare, and I think it's the government that's warring against us, what do you do about that? And that's when you start to get into that revolutionary war kind of thing.
Right, and that's what it's going to eventually lead to. Right now, you see, like, for instance, the example of the whole food stamp shit. That's being done. We told you that shit's being done intentionally. They're doing that on purpose to get you people more angry, to get you people to be more violent, to get you to react, to get you to, ultimately to fight against another. Because what do you see happening with this whole food stamp shit? You don't hear people talking about, we're going to go to the government. We're going to protest. We're going to take it up against the ones that's truly in charge of this shit. But with this whole food stamp situation, who do you see, the result of it is people fighting against the people. You see non-food stamp recipients, getting cussed out by, you see those that are receiving food stamps are angry and mad. And you see those who don't receive food stamps, cussing them out and fighting against them, which we get on Jake for being a goddamn piece of shit and, relying on this system their whole lives and, and abusing this shit, but it's ultimately causing more friction against the American people, those that have it against those that don't have it. And what do you see those that don't have it talking about doing? Oh, I'm gonna go steal, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. And it's on, you better get the hell out of my way, I ain't playing. And you got those who don't receive it talking shit against those. So it's just further bringing more division and more chaos in this society. It's causing basically the people to fight against the people. You see, and that's more of this 5th generational warfare shit that we see happening.
That the CNBC hosts or whoever are fretting about, oh my God, this might prevent more billionaires from rising. But At that moment, I think there is that kind of crisis moment of realization and, hey, we've got to do something about this. The question is,
right, because it is going to get to that point, but like I said, it is going to cause a civil war. It is going to cause these people. Let me get that. Isaiah 19. This is Isaiah 19:2. And I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians, and they shall fight every one against his brother and every one against his neighbor, city against city and kingdom against kingdom. And you see, and that's what a lot of this fifth generational warfare shit is going to ultimately lead to. That's why we keep telling you, this is why they're putting the squeeze on you people. This is why, they're going to continue to cut EBT, Section 8, handouts from the government. And then what's going to happen next? You're going to start seeing mass layoffs of jobs, man. 40,000 in these companies, 40,000, 50,000, all these layoffs from Amazon, all these truck drivers are going to get laid off, all of these service department. Pretty soon they're going to have mass layoffs in the hospital because they're going to start replacing these people's jobs with robots, which is going to cause what? More frustration, more anger, more of a squeeze, which the people, at first, they're going to only be able to take their anger out on one another. It's going to lead to civil war, the have versus the have nots. Second Ezra, the 16th chapter, which I'm going to read, but it's all being done intentionally. And then it's only going to be when people are really at each other's throat and, it's all chaos and martial law and, shutdowns and curfews, when the people are just totally just beating the shit out of each other, that they're going to finally come to the realization that, hey, this whole time our anger shouldn't have been against one another. It should have been against the government and the powers that be. And eventually it's going to lead to that sedition. You see, so a lot of this shit that you see is all being orchestrated. And this is why I did a video last week. Now you're starting to see a lot of these top Trump officials. Now they're starting to live on military bases. They're all starting to move in places because they eventually know that all hell's going to break loose. They know eventually the people are going to end up fighting against the government. But we know first, prophetically, is going to lead to civil war. Neighbor against neighbor, people against people, the have versus the have-nots, before eventually they're going to wake up and be like, you know what? It's these motherfuckers. It's the Bezos. It's the Bill Gates. It's the billionaires, the trillionaires. But by the time these people realize that a lot of these one percenters are going to be in their bunkers, they're going to be hiding out, they're going to be in their secure locations, And eventually, we know prophetically, when Yahweh Shai comes back, these top one percenters, these elites, they're all being preserved to be grabbed up by Yahweh Shai and the elect. But ultimately, it's going to eventually, lead to that sedition, as I'm going to read in a minute. But let's go back to this.
What will the oligarchs do about that? And we saw in 2008, the last time we saw that sort of realization, hey, what the hell is happening? Suddenly there's a $700 billion bailout on the table. Remember when that was a lot of money? And people were starting to, too big to jail, all of that sort of stuff. That's a revolutionary moment. People start rising up. You got people on the right in the Tea Party. You got people on the left in Occupy Wall Street, basically saying the same thing. We're the 99%. There's 1% at the top that's trying to control us. So what do? They make everything about transgender bathrooms. And that becomes, the big talking point of the 2010s. And bye-bye all of that talk about, real revolutionary stuff. And now we're just going to war about the culture war. So I think...
See, that's something that Esau does very well. Once he starts to see that people are waking up and starting to put the pieces together, they'll bring new distractions. They'll bring new issues for the people to be mad about. They'll have some white guy white cop shoot a black person, or have a black person do something to a white person. They'll make, they'll cause some type of distraction to where it'll totally take the energy off where it needs to be at, and they'll have the people, talking about the whole new situation or the whole new distraction, and and these devils do that shit very well, man, because they know ultimately the minds of the people have very short attention spans, and they can easily be, have their attention, they can easily be led, from one thing to the next and to forget about the last thing that they were truly upset and mad about.
The strategy and the way they've tried to kick the can down the road is by fomenting not the revolutionary spirit, the civil war. They want us fighting with each other.
Yes.
No, it isn't the oligarchs that are keeping it down. It has nothing to do with those people at the top with the billions and trillions. No. It's your neighbor, because they voted the wrong way or they wear the wrong color, skirt or whatever.
Right. See, this is why we always tell Jake, never trust thine enemy. You got to know who your enemy truly is. Yeah, of course, you can have a problem with your neighbor or whatever, or, people other citizens. But the main issue, the main problem is these elites, man, is Esau, the wicked. You see, this is what we always tell Jake. Look, this is why you don't have no business identifying as a Republican or a Democrat. It's all part of the same wicked, corrupt ass system. All right. The problem is the elite, the ones at the top, is Esau, Edom, the damn wicked, man. And he's highly highlighted and pointed out in the scriptures, man. And if you don't see that, if you don't understand that, then you're going to constantly and always be able to be deceived and to be led down whatever path these demons lead you down. You're going to always be caught up with their distractions. If they want you to look here, you're going to be caught looking there. If they want you to look over there, you're going to be caught looking there. Always to keep your attention off who the main issue and who the main problem is, which is these damn elites.
Whatever it is that's dividing people, that's what they want to press. So they want civil war, not revolution.
That's very well put. That's exactly that's been the message of this show for a long time now, that they want the left and right fighting, because if we realize we have more in common that divides us and that we share a common enemy, which is,
you see, and this is why they're going to use, they're going to use that left right to ultimately jack you people up. They're going to use the very same system against you. They're going to use this left and right shit to cause civil war, and at the same time, while you're thinking that you're on this side and I'm against that side, Billy not even knowing that they're using both sides against all of you fucking people, man. You see, like I said, they're two cheeks on the same ass, man. Like I said, they use the Republicans to, against the left, and they use the left against the right, ultimately to fulfill their agenda of a new world order, man. This is Revelations 13:11. It says, "And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon." You see? And that's this whole political left versus right bullshit. They're going to use it to divide you people. And then eventually, at the end of the day, they're working hand in hand against you people, man. And it's going to be through that same system that your people were divided and fighting against, that they're going to use to put the clamps and to bring in this new technological digital slave system, man. You see, everything is it's all a sham. It's all fake, man. Ain't none of that shit's real. And they're just using it to divide and to lead you people right down the path of the MOTB at the end of the day, and to this whole, this new world order,
which is the oligarchy. Then we'll come together. So they have to make sure we don't come together. And the way they do that is to keep us fighting over bathrooms, keep us fighting. Michael Schellenberger, I saw him do a whole presentation on this, that, when we had Occupy Wall Street and we had the Tea Party, they were both complaining about the same thing. They were both saying, hey, why are the banks running our lives, wrecking our economy and pocketing cash doing it? And while we have to get kicked out of our houses and we all feel the pinch of a recession, and they wanted to come together. And so they had to stop that. And so Michael Schellenberger makes the point that that's when you started to see all these in newspapers and in the media talk about racism, talk about nationalism, talk about Nazis, talk about whites.
You see, and that's what they're doing right now. This whole MAGA shit is being used to, to further divide this country, to make it be a black versus white thing, And like I said, whenever people start waking up, they'll have, they'll start doing shit like this to get the attention off of, where it ultimately needs to be. And they'll use all these different things about race, black versus white. And like I said, they'll have a white cop shoot a black person or something like that. Or they'll do something to where, it'll bring the people right back to where they want them, fighting against one another. Okay.
Supremacists, and then talk about bathrooms and trans issues. It went off the charts. Right? That what really spiked in the mainstream media. And let's remember what Chomsky taught us, that the media is not there to give you the news. I know people still turn on the TV and read the New York Times because they think they're getting the news. And what they're not getting that. You're getting, they're manufacturing your consent for the oligarchs' agenda. That's what.
Yeah, you see? So it's like everything is being used against you people, It's like they pick and choose what they want you people to be mad about and divided about at the same time, while it's taking the attention off these elites, and where your energy and where the revolution should really be against, man. You see, and hey, and this is and that's a very powerful form of witchcraft and sorcery upon the people. But we know ultimately at the end of the day, hey, it's all going to fulfill prophecy. You know, hey, even though they're talking about, you know, oh, the answer could be this, the answer could be that. Well, none of those things are the answer, because these things prophetically must come to pass. You know, it's just going to lead to the further divide and the further downfall of Babylon the Great, which is America. But I'm just showing you this video, just showing you, you know, how these devils operate, you know, and how a lot of this civil war is really, you know, is being orchestrated, you know. And the media is being used, the politicians, Republicans, Democrats, this whole system is being used to work a fast one on the minds of all of you people out here, man. You know?
The news is there for, which is why they passed the Telecommunications Act in 1996, which took us from 50 different giant media companies down.
And this is why you see, you know, why they're getting ready to start clipping a lot of YouTube videos. They're going to have to stop, you know, truth from coming out. This is why they're going to eventually come up against the prophets and the men of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, you know, other alternative news channels that are ultimately bringing in, that are ultimately telling you the truth. They have to shut down those different voices and those opinions that go against their system, you know, their mainstream media. You know, they only want to give you information that they want you to have, because it's information that benefits them and that further, you know, keeps you people right where they need you to be, uninformed, stupid. And whenever they want you people to be upset and to be mad, they can give you that information that can trigger and get that response from the people. You see, they don't want videos like Jimmy Dore or the prophets or the men of the Lord out there on the highways and the byways kicking the real truth, because it goes against everything that they're trying to accomplish. And this is why, you know, you're going to see heavy censorship. And this is why we tell you that the famine of the word will eventually come, because they can't have, you know, videos and talking points like ours out there, because it could, you know, open the eyes of the people, and they don't want that.
To six gargantuan, colossal, unimaginable giant media companies. So now it's easier to control. You just have 6 companies. Everybody who works in journalism or media is going to end up working for one of these 6 companies. And one of the 6 of the media right now in America is owned by a violent or a Zionist, who is a very vocal Zionist. He owns an Israel loyal person who now owns 1/6 of the American media, one person, and they own TikTok. Same people, and it's all at the behest of Zionism. So it's getting harder and harder to make that case that they don't run the media when one guy buys the media at the behest of Israel and Zionism. Yeah, that's exactly what you were talking about. They completely tried to stop the revolution. They don't want a revolution. Neither does Bernie Sanders, by the way. They got him to take the revolutionary energy in the Democratic Party and funnel it back into the Democratic Party, which is an anti-worker, pro-war party. It's pro-Wall Street. You can't be pro-Wall Street and pro-worker. Those things, they don't mix. And so they've decided to become the party of Wall Street. And idiots, all my idiot friends in Hollywood still think that Democrats care about workers, even though Joe Biden squashed railroad union strike, which would have set the template for workers nationwide. And of course, he had to squash that. But anyway, anything else you'd like to add to this? Because it was really shocking when I saw them on CNBC talking about the 99% coming together against the 1%, because that's what that is.
Yeah. No, well, all I can say is this is a revolutionary moment if we understand it for what it is. But unfortunately, as you say, the media is such an incredibly important part of this, shaping people's perception, not just telling people what to think, but basically putting the framework on how far they're allowed to think on any given subject.
Right. And they also use it to tell you what to be angry about, you know, what to be angry about, what to think, you know. And it ultimately leads people to being further and further divided, man. That's what this system is all about. And he was even telling you know, it ain't no difference between the Democrats and the Republicans. You know, this is a created thing to make it seem as if it's one side against the other, but truly it's really not. They're working hand in hand. It's only being used to further divide you people who identify as being on the left or on the right, man. And at the end of the day, they're both working for the same goal, is to bring in this new world order and to bring digital IDs, to put further squeeze, to bring in the agenda of the World Economic Forum, so you can own nothing and be happy, and put a microchip in your ass at the end of the day, man. And like I said, eventually it is going to lead to all hell breaking loose. It is going to lead to these people eventually waking up to the bullshit, but it's going to be too late by the time these simple-minded people wake up. And this is 2 Ezra 15 and 14. It says, "Woe to the world and them that dwell therein, for the sword and their destruction draweth nigh. And one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands." You see? "For there shall be sedition." And sedition means what? An uprising against the government. You know, it's going to eventually get to that level. But first, we know, these devils are going to bring so much chaos. They're going to bring, they're going to collapse the economy. It's going to be power outages, mass layoffs. They're going to put a further squeeze on the people to where, it is going to lead to a civil war. It's going to lead to people being divided. It's going to lead to neighbor attacking neighbor, and, the people fighting against the people. But eventually it's going to turn to where the people are going to eventually rise up against the powers that be. And it's just all prophetic. It's all prophecy. These things are going to come to pass, man. And we're at those times to where 2026 might just be the year. It says, "For there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power." You see? And who is your kings and your princes? These different governors, these different mayors, the different puppets that work for these elites in different, lower levels of society. But eventually, like I said earlier, you got a lot of these top officials that are moving on military bases, that are moving, their families, and they're not living in just regular places around the city, because a lot of them are starting to get threatened. A lot of these top officials during these protests are being told by the people, "We know where you live at. I know your wife's name, your children's name." And now a lot of these top officials are moving and living on military bases to be protected from what? From the eventual wrath of the people. From the people from great sedition. You see? It says, "A man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able, for because of their pride the city shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. A man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword, and spoil their goods because of the lack of bread and for great tribulation." You see? And that's what's getting ready to happen here in America pretty soon, man. And a lot of it is being intentionally orchestrated by these elites, so that they can bring the order out of the chaos. But eventually it's going to end up backfiring on these fools, man. Eventually the people are going to wake up. Eventually the people are going to be able to see this whole time that while you was fighting against one another, and and you thought your neighbor who didn't vote the way that you voted, or your Republican friend or your Democrat friend was the problem, and the way that he voted was the problem, was never a fucking thing in the first place. It was always these bastards at the top who was doing you guys dirty. You see?
They frame everything in a certain way. They can get people to stop thinking of it in those revolutionary terms, which is why it's even interesting, as you point out, that they're even talking about it this way. You would think they would try to put it into some sort of left-right, it's about Trump politics or whatever. No, they're starting to understand, well, they're at least letting on that they know that this is about real revolution. And that's what we have to do, I think, in the independent media, is stress those factors that they're usually never going to talk about on the...
Right, because we know at the end of the day, as being, prophets and men of the Lord, that the only solution at the end of the day is the return of Yahushua, all right, and a righteous kingdom being established here on this earth, because these people, hey, this whole American thing is done, man. This whole, Democrat and, this whole, system of the so-called white man ultimately just has to be destroyed. That's just the only final solution to it all, is the return of Yahushua, to establish a new heavens and a new earth, wherein is going to dwell righteousness, because these people are never, protesting and marching and trying to snatch up these elites and give them justice and put them in prison and bring in the Nuremberg trials and, grabbing up all these elites and throwing them in prison is never going to happen. That's not the solution. The only solution is Yahushua returning with the host of angels to judge and to make war and to destroy all of these nations in their, in their armies. And, this whole system of Esau, Edom, to be destroyed, man. And a righteous government of Yahushua HaMashiach, as you read in Isaiah 9 and 6, to be established on the earth. That's the only solution to all of this bullshit, all right? at the end of the day. You know, period. So let's go.
The mainstream news.
Well, it's like how they had to pretend that Barack Obama was some kind of communist socialist radical because they had to keep that left-right pretend game going, right? They had Barack Obama was the biggest tool of Wall Street. That's the irony. His entire cabinet came from an email from Citigroup. The Citigroup bank on Wall Street sent an email to the Barack Obama campaign with a list of people they wanted in his campaign. Every one of those people on the list ended up in his campaign. So that just shows you that it's all ready. So the Republicans and Democrat, it really is a show. It really is.
You see, and that's why I read Revelations 13 and 11. See, and you have to understand that it's all bullshit. It's all a show. It's all just, part of the system that's going to be used to bring you people into this new world order, man. It's all the illusion of difference of opinion and this side versus that side. But both at the end of the day, both sides are working hand in hand, man, to give you the illusion. You see?
Theater, because Barack Obama did almost exactly what John McCain would have done, did exactly what Mitt Romney. In fact, he gave us Mitt Romney's healthcare plan. That's what Obamacare is. It's Romney care. And so this goes even more to the point that this left-right divide is completely manufactured to keep us divided, which means we can keep us controlled. That's my thesis, right?
Yeah, that's it. But don't worry. I'm sure Bernie and AOC are going to save us all with their anti-oligarch tour in their private jets.
In their private jets. They're taking private.
Yeah, see? And that's it. It's all bullshit. And it's all going to eventually lead to prophecy being fulfilled. Everything that this man is doing within this system is all set up to fulfill prophecy and to fulfill the will of Yahweh Hashem Yahushua at the end of the day, man. All right. And this is James chapter 5, verse 1. It says, "Go to now, ye rich men, weep and howl for your miseries that shall come upon you. Your riches are corrupted, and your garments are moth-eaten. Your gold and silver is cankered, and the rust of them shall be a witness against you, and shall eat your flesh as it were fire. Ye have heaped treasures together for the last days. Behold, the hire of the laborers who have reaped down your fields, which of you was kept back by fraud, crieth." You see? And this is the ultimate problem with this whole society, is the super elite, the super rich, man. All right. They're the ones that's making it very difficult and hard for for you American people and you citizens to live a nice, comfortable life, man. There's more than enough money and riches and resources and land here in America and basically around the world for everybody to live a comfortable life, man. But these devils, hey, that's just their nature. They're the wicked. They're greedy. They're covetousness. They have an insatiable appetite, and their whole motto is they want everything for themselves, and they want you people to have absolutely nothing. And this is what the whole World Economic Forum, this new world order system, and this new the mark of the beast system is all about. Them having everything and you having absolutely nothing, man. You being in a 15-minute city, like I said, you owning nothing and being happy. Who the fuck will be happy owning absolutely nothing? But everything that you have is being owned by the super rich, and everything that you need in this earth is going to be, in their hands. And in order for you to have it, you got to be obedient, worthless, dumb down, mindless slave for them. Nobody wants that shit, man. You see? And that's why, hey, eventually the people are it's going to be sedition. People are going to go buck wild. It is going to be complete and utter chaos here in this society pretty soon. It says, "Behold, the hirer of the laborers who have reaped down your fields, which is kept back by you of fraud, crieth." You see that now. You see people out here crying. You see people crying over the food stamps. People crashing out over. You see all type of videos on TikTok and YouTube where people was like, "How are y'all surviving? How are y'all making it?" You see they're cutting the food stamps. People are about to feel that shit. You're about to see when this come in around Thanksgiving time, if they don't give these people their food stamps, because a lot of these MAGAs and a lot of these Trump supporters were on SNAP. They were receiving these benefits. Wait till the next, this month and going into Christmas, if they don't open back up the government and these people don't receive, their handouts and their benefits, man, just how much more they're going to be crying out. You're going to see more people in their cars screaming and going crazy and venting on TikTok and Instagram and on YouTube Live about just how hard things are and how they can't survive, and they're on the edge and they're unhinged and they're ready, they don't want to be here no more, and something needs to be done. It's because of this wicked system of these elites, man. It says, and the cries of them which have reaped and are entered into the ears of the Lord of Sabaoth. Ye have lived in pleasure on the earth and have been wanton. Ye have nourished your hearts as in a day of slaughter. You condemn and killed the just, and he doth not resist you. You see, and this is what eventually the people are going to start doing. Is they're going to bring in that sedition because of these super elite, these super rich, man, and how they're moving and how they're operating and how they're basically just bringing pure hell upon the average American citizen, upon the average American worker. And it's going to eventually lead to all hell breaking loose in this society. And these elites are going to have to eventually go underground. They're going to have to eventually go into their bunkers. They're going to have to eventually get the hell out of Dodge, man. You know, because it's just going to get that bad, man. But as I said, it's all prophecy coming to pass, man. And nothing is going to stop it. It's all going to come. But you can see, man, hey, you know, how things are shaping up and how, you know, hey, this civil war is it's unavoidable. It's going to happen, you know, or first and foremost, because it's the will of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. And obviously, you know, because the way that things are being done and the way that these elites are moving and, you know, operating, you know, it's only going to lead to these situations to happen. So with that, Lord willing, this was edifying. Lord willing, I wasn't all over the place and you were able to eat off this lesson. I'm going to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bashem Yahushai for putting the spirit in me to do this lesson. Lord willing, you are edified. Until the next one, shalom.